You guys know what's a popular trend in fanficdom? Villain redemption. Yeah, there's a lot of debate and discourse on various other film channels and stuff like that about how, the show redeems every single villain, every single villain. Well, for all the complaining that pops up, we certainly like doing it in fanon, don't we? To add on to that, we also really love doing that if it involves shipping. See? We know what we do. I wonder if that's why some of them complain about it, is because they've seen it done in so many fanfics that they really can't find anything new about it. This, folks, is why you always, when you start a show, get somebody who's adept at the internet and actually knows the different fanfic tropes before you do something stupid. And here's apparently a sunset-oriented one with her and Sonata. And it has a tropes page. Yay! Evening Sonata, Part 1. Sunset Shimmer's apartment was in a rather small, rambling building, not far distant from the school. Contributing to the school's good rep, or perhaps as a result of it, the apartment housed none of the pleasant, good-natured people, all usually had a kind thing to say. In bygone days, Sunset Shimmer had been one exception, but now she too was willing to say, "Hello, Mrs. Ball, and I hope that dissertation goes well today, Mr. Sweet." To her pleas, albeit surprised neighbors. The apartment itself was cheap and small. Her old self had scorned it as something she would improve on once she attained the power she desired. Now, after almost 3 years of living here, it had a homely welcome feel. Nothing changed here. Nothing interrupted her personal time or quiet serenity, except when Pinkie Pie visited. Nothing unusual ever happened. Not until last Friday, anyway. Sunset pushed open the door with her foot, setting the grocery bags back down on the kitchen counter, and preparing to switch the TV onto her favorite show, Power Ponies, back in action. When there came a distant, muffled noise from somewhere above, she paused to listen. It sounded rather as though a bag of cats were being drowned in thick pudding while somebody beat them with an aluminum bat. Sunset sat down in a moment and moved around her apartment, trying to hear where the sound was coming from. A television blaring above or below, perhaps. She didn't think so, somehow. Nor from the old Mr. Fairy who lived across the hall. He only watched old films late at night, and she couldn't imagine this horrible sound coming from any black and white film. Not this sound, at any rate. On impulse, she opened the window in her sitting area, and briefly heard the sound louder, until it was swiftly cut off. She waited for a few moments, looking all over the street below, but couldn't see or hear the source of the noise. The curious occurrence would have interested Sunset much more than a piece of random gossip to tell her friends, if it didn't happen again and again, for 5 consecutive evenings. Each time, Sunset poked her head out the window, listening for the source. It was always distorted by the winds blowing past her door. "Come to think of it," Applejack said when Sunset missed the door, "I heard a sound like that too, when I was driving home from the farmer's market last Saturday." "Oh yeah," Reba snickered, when Sunset spoke to her during team practice. That's why her facial hotel took a swig of water before continuing. "Was coming home from late practice last Friday, and I heard it coming from near your apartment. Almost called Fluttershy to tell her an animal was hurt." She laughed, offering Sunset both a ball of wire, which Sunset politely declined. Rarity, Pinkie, and Fluttershy, meanwhile, had not heard a thing, and had no gossip to give until the following Thursday, when all 6 of them met at Sugar Cube Corner. "It was the oddest thing, darlings," Rarity said, waving her ice cream spoon daintily. "I swear to get the date that one of the Dazzling girls came to my parents' establishment. You know, the one with the blue ponytail." "Sonata?" "Yes, that's the one," Rarity said absently. "Anyway, it was the most dreadful thing. Her clothes are in tatters, I don't mind telling you, and for all that she and her friends were evil, they did have fabulous style," she stuttered. "It was a travesty to see such clothes in the state." "What does he do? Try to rip you a new one?" "Not at all," Rarity shrugged, and so she was still rather surprised by the encounter herself. "She just wandered around the marked-down bins for a while, shivering and not talking to anyone. I felt so sorry for the poor dear, I gave her a coat free of charge." Sunset blinked. The other Dazzlings weren't with her? "Not that I saw, darling. The poor dear didn't see herself. You know, he positively ran away from me when I tried to talk to him all, Rarity said, taking a bite of her coconut sundae and then choking on it. The door to the cafe just opened. Sunset and her friends turned one by one, seating a rifle, and Lisa listened, surprised in her own way. Rarity choked quietly on her ice cream, massaging her throat with her eyes steaming. Alice tilted her head up a bit, frowning slightly. Rainbow Dash sat up properly from a laid-back position across two chairs, eyebrows raised. Fireside let out a squeak of surprise when she hastily hid a small sneeze. Pinkie Pie gasped loudly, and let the 3 spoons she was holding all fall dramatically with tinkles to the table. Sunset Shimmer stared while patting Rarity on the back, her insides giving an unpleasant squirm that she was seeing. Sonata Dusk, rubbing her arms, stepped out of the winter cold of the outside into the welcome warmth of the cafe, and for a moment seemed to just allow the sweet scents of pastries and tea to wash over her for a moment. As Rarity had described, her clothes were worn, dirty, and torn in places, except for the magenta coat she was wearing over them. Covertly, she put a hand in her pocket and fished out some notes and coins, counting them with an air of desperation. With a relieved little sigh, she proceeded eagerly to the counter, evidently unaware of the table full of girls watching her. With an indecent look of hunger in her eyes, she ordered a pastry, handing over the somewhat dirty-looking money. Mrs. Cake gave her a sympathetic look and handed her a coffee, too. No, it's on the house, Mrs. Cake said kindly. Sonata had been looking fretfully at the coffee and was looking confused. Why? She asked quietly. You need fattening up, dear. Mrs. Cake smiled at her. Sonata looked purely perplexed and unsure whether to take the coffee or not. Perhaps unconsciously, she fingered a black strap around her neck. Mrs. Cake, meanwhile, turned to serve another customer. Tentatively, as though expecting the coffee to suddenly dart away, Sonata picked it up, along with the bag containing her pastry, and turned to leave. Halfway to the door, her eyes looking a little over the bright, she suddenly seemed to notice Sunset's table. She froze, eyes widening. She remained like that for 7 full seconds. She stared at him for a few minutes, and then at her. Then dropped her coffee. The hot liquid burst from the cup, splashing over her legs and over the floor. She cried out, more from surprise than pain. Now everyone in the cafe was looking at her, whispering and turned to get better looks. Without knowing what she was doing, Sunset stood up and saluted Fluttershy. Oh, Fluttershy said with concern, and Sonata looked down at the mess on the floor as though she had broken a priceless ornament. She bent down, evidently unsure what to do, but picked up the cup and tried to scoop the coffee back up. There's elicited some snickering from the patrons all around. Fluttershy handed Sunset a wad of napkins, and the two of them began clearing out the mess. Are you all right? Fluttershy asked Sonata. Sonata looked at her as though she thought Fluttershy was going to bite her. Here. Fluttershy offered her some napkins, too, as the rest of the table came over. Mrs. Cake trotted out from behind the counter, hooting and calling her husband to get them up. I... Sonata stammered. She looked up at the floor behind Sunset and Fluttershy. They had Mr. and Mrs. Cake resting over. Do your legs hurt? Did you get burned? Fluttershy asked. Tears in her eyes, her breathing rapid. Sonata ran, bursting through the doors of the cafe and out into the winter wind. Sunset stared at her, unsure of what she was feeling. Well, Rainbow said flatly, what was that all about? Read it between the lines, darling, Rarity said sarcastically. I get the feeling she rather fears meeting us. You can't be kind of scary, Rarity, Pinkie Pie said wisely. What? Rarity cried indignantly. See, like that, Pinkie said, sidestepping behind Applejack and rolled her eyes. I feel bad for her, Fluttershy said to Sunset. She looked so scared. Yay, back in character. I am so glad. After that last fic, I was afraid. Yeah, Sunset agreed distractedly. Sunset sat in her apartment that evening, fingering a pen in her hand and staring at a blank page of her journal. Dear Princess Twilight. She was pondering what exactly to write after this, but nothing was occurring to her. As she sat there nibbling on some biscuits and sipping some tea, she let her mind wander to the scene of the cafe. The entire scene had shocked her, made her uncertain. She had been convinced that the Dazzlings were bad people, independent and fierce, rather like her old self had been, unwilling to show weakness or need. If that is what Sunset said to Bar as to continuing towards being a bad person, then she could no longer hold Sunset under his name. She had been alone, helpless, desperate, and pathetic, The role had been familiar to her, since I had seen that. The puzzlement was so kindness for Mrs. Keek had been apparent. Again, it reminded Sunset of... There it was again. The horrible sound like animals being tortured. Sunset put down her pen and journal and went quickly to the window. Poking her head out, she listened carefully to determine what it was. As before, however, the winds around the building made the sound impossible to trace. Then a paper bag dropped out of nowhere and hit Sunset's hair, buffeted by the wind, and sinking into the growing darkness below. Sunset looked up. The roof? The stairway to the roof was, strictly speaking, a maintenance stairway and fire exit. It wasn't, strictly speaking, supposed to be for everyone in day use. Nonetheless, Sunset mounted the stairs 2 at a time, slowing down as she came to the door at the top, which was ajar. Peering through the crack, she saw a figure standing on the roof by its edge, singing. While she explained, the sounds reminiscent of a banshee at karaoke night. The sun was setting and gliding the figure in shadow, making it impossible to see who it was. As Sunset stepped out into the stairwell, she noticed an old wooden shed with its door slightly open too. At one time, it must have held tools, which was unceremoniously done to the side. Now, however, the interior was covered in makeshift installation of cannibalized cardboard boxes, contained several old discolored blankets. It looked as though rather someone had taken to sleeping in there. While Sunset contemplated this, the singer had stopped her singing, was now crying quietly over the roof's edge, shoulders trembling as they sniffed and sobbed. Hello? The figure jumped, falling back against the short wall, pressing herself against it. Sunset gasped. Sonata? Sunset Shimmer? They stared at each other for a moment or two. You live here? You live here? Sunset asked at the same time, and critically it said, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I'll go. I'm sorry. No, wait. Sunset reached out impulsively and seized Sonata's wrist. You don't have to. She felt Sonata's arms shaking. Do you want something to drink? You know, for all the talk about how some people feel about Ruby, also doing the whole rejection thing with the females just because they're cute. I hate to tell these guys this, who apparently never read a fanfic in their lives, but there's this little trope called Draco in Leather Pants, where we take the evil people and, in spite of all the evil they've done, we'll redeem them and turn them nice people. It's tradition, guys. I'm sorry, but it happens. We find the cute person or the nice guy, and we'll redeem them. Hell, if that person also just so happens to have an incredible singing voice, hint, hint, we'll forget that they are evil, energy-draining harpies, and we'll redeem them because they're cute or funny. We do that. Hell, I do it! Ever see me do Lotor in a fic? I turn him into a heroic character! I'll put these people into leather pants if I wanna. It happens. I'm sorry to tell you guys this, but it always happens and it always will. We'll find any excuse to say it or do it. It's just the way the world works. Don't know how to tell you. All you can do is just sit back and enjoy and see if it's good material. It took a little coaxing to get Sonata to her apartment, where she made her a cup of strong tea with cream. Sonata sat on the edge of her seat, so ready to jump off at any moment, looking uneasy and jumping at any time Sunset spoke. Have some biscuits if you want, Sunset said, showing the pack of 4 on the table. Sonata held her cup like she thought someone would steal it, glancing at the biscuits and offering quiet thanks. So, Sunset said, tapping her own cup. Can I ask you something? Sonata asked suddenly. Yeah, I mean, that kind of counted as asking something, so yeah. Sunset smiled, hoping to sense of humor might lighten the mood. Sonata's mouth trembled for a moment, as though she were going to smile. Why did you invite me here? Sunset thought for a moment. She was honest, she wasn't sure. I felt bad for you, she said, remembering a Fluttershy had said. You shouldn't be out in the cold. Sonata looked genuinely confused. But I tried to, you know. Well, yeah, you did, Sunset conceded. But so did I, and my friends like me that way. A long silence followed this, during which Sonata stared into her cup. The miserable look on her face made Sunset wonder if she actually might try to drown herself in it. She looked around the room for inspiration for something to say. Eyes lighted on her journal. So, where are your friends? She asked pleasantly. What? Sonata asked, coming out of a reverie. The other two. Adagio and the other one. Are ya? Here. Gone. Gone? How? Sunset asked hesitantly. Gone, as in left town. Sonata bit her lip for a moment and blinked a few times. Adagio and she, well, they didn't always get along anyway. But now we can't sing anymore. They argue and a great sniff, she started to cry, shutting her eyes tight and trying to fight back tears. Sunset really wasn't sure what she was doing. Covering people wasn't exactly she had much experience in. Nonetheless, he sat down next to Sonata on the sofa and placed a tentative hand on her shoulder. She patted a few times, feeling incredibly awkward. Sonata looked at her suddenly, looking as surprised and uncertain as she did when Mrs. Cake had given her the coffee. Sunset found herself taking in the features of her face, rather than looking her in the eye like a person should. Suds on her cheek, her wilted ponytail, a slightly open mouth, the tears shimmering under her chin. Why are you being nice to me? Sonata asked. Sonata sounded utterly bewildered. I'm worthless. I'm stupid. I have no sense, no skills. I can't do anything. Why are you doing this? Don't you talk about yourself like that, Sunset said reprovingly. Surely you could do some... She stopped, as she thought about preceding days. Now dawned on her as plain as day that what she heard were Sonata's attempts to sing without her pendant. She tried for days in a place evidently thought that no one would hear her, no one would judge her. Singing was the only thing I was ever good at, Sonata gulped. I can't do anything now. Sunset felt an inkling of guilt here. She exhaled, her tender grip on Sonata's shoulder becoming more confident, reassuring. Do you feel the same way as when you were at the Dazzlings? Do you feel the same greed, lust for recognition? Sonata stared at her, eyes going focused. I don't. The words seemed to take Eamon by herself by surprise. I felt the same way. I guess I'm being nice to you because if I don't believe that you deserve to be given a chance, then I didn't deserve one either. I mean, trying to hypnotize everyone with music to take over the world, of course, is pretty bad. But turning into a raging sea demon and trying to fry Twilight and her friends with a fireball has to be a bit worse. I mean, if you look at it that way. Sunset felt rise to her cheek as she realized she was rambling. Sonata merely looked at her expression vague. Sunset? Yeah. Could I ask you to do something for me? Sunset blinked to tell you to take it back. Sure. What? Could you hold me, please? You say one joke about we're going to have some heavy-duty lesbian porn petting, and Trixie will taser you in the arse! Oh, look at that! I'm talking about video. It's 20% off on Crunchyroll. Sunset was fully taken aback. Her immediate instinct was to protest, but something in Sonata's face made her rethink it. Tentatively, like a young bird on its maiden flight, Sunset opened her arms in what hoped she was a defying manner. With more soberness than Sunset was expecting, Sonata leaned into her, resting her head on Sunset's shoulder and placing both arms around her middle. Oh, I know what's going to happen. They're going to hold each other's hands and lay back in bed and look at each other softly, and there's going to be a little moment where they're going to have some sort of time to confess and talk about the themes of the anime, and then... I'm sorry, I just really love you to know. Well, Sonata, I don't think I've ever seen you so serious. I've not had the luxury of being an airhead recently, Sonata whispered. Sunset searched momentarily for some way of lightening the mood, but every attempt was failing miserably. She rested Sonata's back for a moment, before being hit by an overwhelming smell that made her nearly choke. Say, Sonata, Sunset said, trying not to gag. How about I make us some dinner? Do you need to use the bathroom or anything? Sonata pulled out the hug. Well, actually, do you mind if I use the shower? It's been a while. Yahoo! Trixie, I didn't even say anything! You were about to! Sunset turned a sigh of relief and put on a tearful smile. Not at all, not at all. It's yours. I'll get to dinner. Pasta good for you? While the pasta bubbled and boiled and the vegetables microwaved, Sunset took a quick look around the bathroom. She quickly heard the sounds of running water and thought it safe to enact her plan. Picking up her phone, she dialed a number and hoped that everything tomorrow would work out. There better be some sweet, adorable lesbian cuddling, snuggling, and hand-holding!